Before we get started today, I would like to tell you this is not a Today I Fucked Up story. This comes from a different subreddit called Nosleep. There, users tell their chilling, haunting, scary stories. And today's story comes from a username called Nightshiftsecurity. I hope you enjoy. When you're a cop, if the rest of the cops are jumping off a bridge, you jump off the bridge too. Peer pressure is dangerous, especially as a cop. You have to stand with your men, and you never narc on a fellow cop, or else. Or else what? You could be fired. Your house could be set on fire. Your life might be ruined. Basically, rule 1 of joining the police force is that you never narc on a cop. So anyone looking into the job, you'll probably end up setting aside some morals in favor of keeping your career. A little backstory on me. I'm 42. I was born and raised for the military. I went to a military school as a kid and came out ready to join the armed forces. They weren't ready for me, or specifically, they weren't ready for my thyroid issues. Fighting, in a way, it can make it difficult to keep up with a newly diagnosed thyroid problem, especially when it required taking a pill at the same time, every day. Long story short, I didn't pass the health screening, and became a cop instead. I felt like it was as close as I could get to my original plan. I quit the force at 39, and now I work as a security guard between a zoo and a mall in a town a little bigger than the one I live in. The first story from work I want to tell just to get off my chest that it bothered me a little bit. From this point on, I was always just a little bit more edgy at night, a little bit more jumpy. The station is across from a little park, and the park has sidewalks weaving through it in all directions. I don't know what they were thinking when they mapped it out, but they go all over the place. They're all connected to the main sidewalk that follows the street. And if you follow the one directly across from the station, you end up going through a narrow, metal tunnel that goes underneath a railroad track. The tunnel is a part of a pathway to a large clearing and some trees, and was originally a picnic area. But a secluded area in the woods in a small town, or at least in my town, meant it was a local hotspot for teenagers to find each other's hotspot, or anyone dealing or doing drugs, or any other illegal, creepy, or immoral activities. Recently, they put up some cameras, but before that, and when I was on the force, we just patrolled the park and the picnic area now and then. I was frequently sent down there at night to make sure no one was around that shouldn't be. The park, including the picnic area, closed at 9, so any time after that was trespassing. The story I'm recounting took place in the picnic area. We got a call from a local that said some kids were walking west, the direction of the park, and making a lot of noise. It was about 10 p.m., and the call was basically an older man complaining about some noisy kids. I decided to give them some time to get there, then show up and send them all home. Kids, just being kids, I just tell them to keep it down and not let me catch them there again. Usually, unless they were especially drunk or just feeling brave in front of their buddies, all it took to scare them was a cop showing up and getting on their case. I waited around the station for about 10, maybe 15 minutes, then made my way down to the park. It was the middle of fall, so the air was cold, and the winds were bitter. It was also drizzling, and the only lights came from a passing car and a few street lights. I jogged, ready to get back to the warmth of my station. I broke the law, I admit it right now. I didn't want to spend the next 2 minutes walking up the street to a crosswalk just to walk down it again. So I jaywalked, but to be fair, I didn't really get onto anyone for jaywalking unless they disrupted traffic. I made it to the picnic area and took out my flashlight, flipped it on and shined the narrow beam of light around the trees. They'd be there by now, so if anyone was there, they'd have heard me coming and gone silent. "You're caught," I called out, my voice breaking that silence. I hadn't noticed it before, but as the echo faded away, I heard it. The sound of absolutely nothing. I couldn't hear any cars. I couldn't hear any animals. I couldn't hear the wind through the swaying branches of the trees. I tried to call out again just to break the weird silence, but the words caught in my throat. Someone was there that night. I could feel it, that I wasn't alone. This night was the first time that I ever felt a presence in my life. For a cop, I had always been easy to sneak up on, easy to startle. But right in that moment, I was fully aware that I wasn't alone. It was the utmost unsettling feeling I have ever experienced, to know that someone was there with me. Someone I couldn't see. It struck a nerve. It wasn't that I had never been in danger before. I had been in a standoff with a drunk robber, holding a clerk at gunpoint. I had been viciously attacked by some drug dealer's German Shepherd. I had been in danger, but this very moment was the only point in my life that I had or have ever felt like I needed to remove myself from a situation with no rational thought behind it. I was just scared. I just knew that I needed to get out of there, right at that moment. So I turned around, tucking the flashlight away and completely ready to run all the way back to the station, and froze. There was someone in the metal tunnel. Now, when I say someone, it's because I've mentally written this off as some druggie. Bony and deformed from years of drug use and the violence that comes with it. I could only see their silhouette, but their shoulders were hunched and defined. Sharp, with long arms and long hands. Disproportionately large, but it could have easily just seemed that way from how thin the rest of him was. I felt nauseous looking at him, and I fought the urge to gag. I kept one hand on my gun, and the other was in a tight fist by my side. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. The man, assuming it was a man by the broad shoulders, took one step towards me and I drew my gun. I am never, ever so quick to draw my weapon, but the sick feeling in my stomach and the overall feeling of fear had built up. I felt like it was the right thing to do. I might have been acting in fear, but it ultimately saved me. The man spun around and took off running. The way he moved was off. With each step, his body lunged wildly forward, and I'm surprised he didn't fall. I can't explain it any better than he threw himself with every step. I booked it to the station, got a few "you look pales" and "you okays," but ultimately, that's the end of my experience. It takes me a while to type these out. I'm not a big computer person and I don't write often. My daughter told me about this website when I was telling her about some of my experiences, and she signed me up and showed me what to do. If anyone seems interested in hearing more about my time as a cop, I'll be sure to type up some more. I have a few worth mentioning.